The old human outpost floated in silence above the barren moon. It had been built long ago, back when humanity still struggled to spread across the stars. Now it was little more than a listening post, a forgotten piece of metal that only a few people remembered existed. The outpost had 6 empty docks, 3 broken antenna towers, and power systems that often failed without warning. Inside, a single human worked. His name was Daniel. He was not a soldier, not a commander, not anyone important. He was an engineer, the kind who fixed broken circuits and patched leaking pipes. His job was simple: keep the outpost alive so the long-range scanners could keep watching the edge of human space. The days here were always quiet. Too quiet, Daniel often thought. No ships passed this far, no colonies were nearby. He sometimes joked to himself that he could scream and no one in the galaxy would hear him. But even in silence, duty was duty. He woke up every day, checked the life support systems, ran diagnostics on the scanners, and repaired whatever had failed during the night. That morning began like every other. The hum of the recycled air was steady, and the lights flickered weakly above him. He sat in front of the control screen drinking lukewarm coffee from a metal cup when a red light blinked on his panel. At first he thought it was another false alarm. The outpost often gave strange signals when its sensors glitched, but then the alarm blinked again, stronger, sharper, and more insistent. Daniel straightened in his chair. His fingers moved across the old console, trying to bring up details. The outpost scanners had detected a vessel, an unknown vessel. He froze. Out here? That was impossible. No one came this far, not unless they were lost or hiding. The screen showed a ship entering the system from the dark edge of space. It was moving fast, faster than anything Daniel had ever seen. The engines glowed like blue fire, cutting across the void with incredible precision. His heart pounded. He had been trained for this, at least in theory. Unknown contact meant he had to alert command, activate the defense grid, and prepare for lockdown. But the defense grid was ancient, and command barely remembered this place even existed. Unknown vessel, Daniel muttered under his breath, trying to calm himself. Could be pirates, could be worse. He opened a communication channel to Earth, but the old relay sputtered. Static filled the screen. He cursed quietly. The message would take hours to reach anyone, if it reached them at all. Meanwhile, the unknown ship was already close, too close. Daniel switched to the external cameras. The vessel appeared on the monitor, a sleek craft unlike anything human-made. Its hull was curved like flowing water, glowing faintly with lines of silver. It looked both elegant and deadly. Not a freighter, not a mining ship, something else. The ship slowed, but it did not stop. It kept coming, straight toward the outpost. Daniel's breath caught. He reached for the defense controls, but deep down he knew the truth. His weapons were outdated, his shields were weak, and his systems were falling apart. If the vessel wanted him gone, he would not even have time to scream. The ship stopped, only 100 meters away from the outpost's docking ring. Silence filled the control room. Daniel could hear his own heartbeat. Then the speakers crackled. A voice broke through. "Human station, do not be alarmed." Daniel's eyes widened. The voice was not human. It was smooth, melodic, carrying strange tones that almost sounded like singing, yet the words were clear. "I mean no harm," the voice continued. "I request docking access. Please respond." Daniel hesitated. He wanted to shut the channel, to refuse, to follow protocol. But something in that voice kept him from moving. It was calm, almost desperate, as if the speaker had traveled far and carried heavy weight. "This is Outpost 714, Daniel finally answered, his voice shaking. "Identify yourself." "My name is Kayla," the voice said. "I am not your enemy. Please, let me come aboard." Daniel stared at the screen. His instincts screamed at him to say no. But another part of him, the part that had spent years in silence, the part that longed for something beyond broken machines, hesitated. She had come too close, too fast. He couldn't push her away. Docking access granted, he whispered, against every rule he had ever been taught. The outpost shuddered slightly as the alien vessel locked onto the docking ring. Daniel stood up slowly, his legs trembling. He grabbed the small plasma cutter from his workbench, not a weapon, but the closest thing he had. Then he walked toward the docking bay. The doors hissed open. Steam drifted from the airlock. Daniel held his breath as the figure stepped inside. It was a woman or something close to it. She was tall, her form wrapped in a suit of smooth armor that shimmered with faint light. Her skin was pale silver, her eyes bright like distant stars. She carried no weapon in her hands, but her very presence felt powerful. Daniel gripped the plasma cutter tighter. "You're Kayla?" She nodded once. "Yes, and you are Daniel, human engineer of this station." Hearing her speak his name sent a chill down his spine. "How do you know that?" "I have studied your kind," she said softly. "I had no choice." Daniel's throat felt dry. This was no ordinary meeting. This was something else. Something far greater than himself. For a moment the two stood there in silence. The outpost's weak lights flickered above them, casting long shadows across the walls. Daniel could not move away. He felt trapped between fear and curiosity, between danger and strange connection. Finally, Kayla spoke again. Her voice was steady, but her eyes held something deeper. Exhaustion, desperation, maybe even hope. "I came here because I need your help," she said. "And because your people must be warned." Daniel frowned. "Warned? About what?" Kayla took a slow breath. "About the truth. About what is coming. About why your species must be ready." Daniel didn't understand. Not yet. But one thing was clear. His quiet life at the forgotten edge of space was over. The galaxy had just knocked on his door, and it came in the form of Kayla, who had come too close, too fast, and would not move away. The docking bay doors sealed, with a hiss, cutting off the quiet hum of space. Daniel watched Kayla move gracefully across the floor, her armored boots barely making a sound. She was elegant, yet there was an unmistakable tension in her shoulders. Daniel could tell she was carrying something heavy, though he did not yet know what. "You need a place to rest," Daniel said, his voice still uncertain. "I can show you to the living quarters." Kayla's eyes glimmered softly. "Thank you. I will need more than that soon, but rest? Yes, rest is necessary." Daniel led her through the narrow hallways of the outpost. The walls were scratched and dull, and the air smelled faintly of metal and recycled oxygen. He had spent years here, fixing systems and repairing circuits, yet somehow he had never seen the place as lonely as it felt now. With Kayla beside him, the emptiness seemed deeper. Once inside the small quarters, Daniel gestured toward the bed. "This is the best I can offer. It's not much." Kayla knelt briefly beside the bed, studying the simple sheets and blanket. She nodded, then looked at Daniel. "It will suffice." Daniel hesitated. There was a part of him that wanted to ask questions, so many questions, but he also knew timing mattered. Some truths, once revealed, could not be ignored. He finally said, "You said my people must be warned." "About what?" Kayla's expression hardened. She pulled off her helmet, revealing hair like silver threads and eyes that reflected a faint galaxy of stars. Her face was beautiful, yet tired. "I come from the Erythran Empire," she said softly, "a civilization that has watched humanity in secret for decades. We thought we could control your species, or at least guide you. We were wrong." Daniel's eyebrows rose. "Control us? Guide us? You watched us?" Kayla nodded. "Yes. Your kind has always been unpredictable, stubborn, and yet remarkably adaptable. You survive in ways that no other species can. That is why I risked everything to leave my people and come here. They plan to eliminate your species before you can become dangerous." Daniel felt a chill. His hands tightened around the edge, of the small table. Eliminate us? Why? They fear you, Kyla said, her voice calm but edged with urgency. They fear what humans can do. Your resilience, your creativity, your ability to survive against impossible odds. It threatens the Erythran Empire. They have never faced a species like yours. And they never want to. Daniel sank into a chair. He felt as if the room had suddenly grown smaller, the air heavier. And they'll just attack us? Kayla knelt beside him, lowering her armored frame to his level. They will, unless humans take control first. That is why I am here. To warn you and to offer what knowledge I can. You must prepare, Daniel. Humanity cannot stay silent anymore. Daniel rubbed his forehead. The room was spinning with words, with danger, with the impossible truth that someone had been watching humans all this time. And now, an alien woman was in his outpost, trusting him with secrets that could decide the fate of the galaxy. And, why me? He asked finally. Why come to this one outpost to me? Kayla's eyes softened. You are human. You represent what my people could never understand about your kind. Ingenuity, courage, and something they cannot measure. You can help humans awaken to their potential. You will decide how to act, but you cannot ignore this. Daniel felt a strange pull toward her words, toward her presence. He didn't understand why, but he felt as if a weight had been lifted from him, even as the danger became clearer. She had come too close, too fast, and somehow he could not move away. The outpost shivered under the distant hum of approaching engines. Daniel watched the radar screens as blips multiplied, each one signaling a ship belonging to Kayla's pursuers. Their speed and formation left no doubt. They were skilled, disciplined, and deadly. Daniel's hands were steady, but his heart raced. Every sense was heightened. He had spent years fixing satellites, not facing fleets, yet here he was, staring down the most dangerous enemy he could imagine. Beside him, Kayla moved with calm precision, her fingers gliding over the controls, her eyes scanning the holographic interface that displayed the oncoming threat. We have little time, she said, her voice low but firm. They are too fast to evade. We must act quickly. Daniel swallowed. What can we do? My outpost isn't a battle station. Kayla's eyes softened. Exactly. That is why we will use what they do not expect. Humanity's strength is not in sheer power, but in creativity, unpredictability, and adaptability. That is why we will turn your weakness into advantage. Daniel blinked. Weakness into advantage? She nodded. Yes. They think you are vulnerable. They believe this outpost is a simple target. They are wrong. We will prove it. The alien woman's calm confidence was contagious. Daniel took a deep breath and moved toward the control panels, feeling a sense of determination he had never experienced. He was no soldier, but he had human ingenuity. That was something no advanced fleet could underestimate. Kayla guided him through a rapid assessment of the outpost systems. We will make them think the outpost has more defenses than it does. We will use the terrain of space, the moon's shadows, and the old power grid to create traps. They will hesitate, they will make mistakes, and we will exploit them. Daniel's mind raced as he followed her instructions. He reconfigured the outpost's sensors to send false signals, making it seem as though hidden turrets were ready to fire. He recalibrated the satellite arrays to reflect energy bursts, creating illusions of massive weaponry. He even rigged the old maintenance drones to hover like automated sentries. Kayla watched silently, her eyes assessing every move. Good. Quick thinking. That is human strength. Daniel felt a surge of pride, tempered by fear. I hope it's enough, he muttered. Outside, the enemy ships advanced. They moved with precision, scanning the outpost as though expecting an easy victory. Daniel could feel the tension in the air. Every second counted. Every mistake could be fatal. Ready? Kayla asked. Daniel nodded. As ready as I'll ever be. Kayla activated her ship's cloaking field and moved it just outside the docking bay. "We draw them closer," she said. "They will come within range, thinking they are safe." And then Daniel understood. This was a trap. He adjusted the sensor grid, sending pulses that suggested hidden defenses. The enemy fleet, confident and arrogant, approached the outpost, following the false signals. "Now," Kyla whispered. Daniel pressed the command. Energy pulses erupted from the reflected arrays, dazzling the enemy sensors. The drones moved suddenly, creating the illusion of a massive defensive formation. The enemy ships blinked in confusion, their formation disrupted. Kayla's voice was calm, precise. "Good. They hesitate. That is human advantage." Daniel felt a thrill run through him. This was no longer about fear. This was about proving something. The strength, adaptability, and courage that made humans unique. The enemy fleet corrected their course, but Kayla had anticipated it. She directed Daniel to open the moon's shadow channels, a narrow path that forced the pursuers into a confined approach. The enemy ships had to follow or risk losing contact. "They underestimate us," Daniel said, awe in his voice. Kayla nodded. "They always do. That is their mistake. Humans do not follow expectations." As the enemy ships entered the narrow channel, Daniel activated the final part of their trap. The outpost's old satellite arrays emitted concentrated energy pulses, creating a wall of light that forced the fleet to split and navigate carefully. The illusions of turrets and sentries made them overcompensate, each maneuver calculated, but flawed. "Excellent," Kyla said softly. "They are faltering. Keep it going." Daniel worked with precision, adjusting the pulses, anticipating each enemy move. His mind was racing, but everything Kayla taught him fit together like a puzzle. The human capacity for quick thinking and adaptation was his weapon. The enemy ships began to retreat, temporarily disoriented and unsure. For the first time, Daniel saw hesitation in their actions, hesitation that humans could exploit. Kayla's voice cut through his thoughts. "Now we strike." Daniel's heart pounded. They were about to take the offensive. Kayla guided him to sync the outpost's energy emitters with her ship's advanced technology. The combination created a sudden, precise pulse of energy that disabled the leading enemy ship's engines. It drifted helplessly, a warning to the rest. The remaining ships faltered. Daniel could feel the tension in the room, the weight of every choice, every move. Humans had no advanced fleet here, no overwhelming weaponry, but human ingenuity, his ingenuity, was enough to create fear in a disciplined alien force. Kayla turned to him, eyes bright with pride. "You see? That is human strength. Not raw power, but courage, creativity, and will. That is why I risked everything to come here." Daniel felt something swell inside him. It was more than pride. It was realization. Humans had been underestimated for centuries, but here, now, his quick thinking and problem-solving had turned the tide, at least temporarily. The enemy fleet regrouped and retreated a short distance, wary of the outpost's apparent defenses. Kyla deactivated her cloaking field, letting her ship glide beside the human engineer. "You did well," she said softly. "You adapted faster than any simulation I have seen. That is human value." Daniel's hands shook slightly, adrenaline still rushing through him. We did it, but they'll come back, won't they?" Kayla nodded, her expression serious. "Yes, this was only a small encounter. They will learn, adapt, and return. But now, humanity has shown it is not defenseless. That is enough for today." Daniel looked at her, awe and respect mixing with a strange sense of connection. "I never thought I'd do something like this. I'm just an engineer. I fix machines." Kayla placed a hand on his shoulder. "That is what makes you dangerous. You think in ways they do not expect. You adapt. You survive. That is the human way." For a moment, Daniel felt something shift. He understood, in a way he had never before, why humans had always survived, even against impossible odds. It was not strength alone. It was creativity, unpredictability, courage, and an unwillingness to retreat even when the odds were stacked against them. Outside, the stars were silent witnesses to the first true demonstration of human ingenuity in this sector of the galaxy. Daniel and Kayla stood together victorious, if only for a moment. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. But even in this victory, a shadow lingered. Kayla's pursuers would return, stronger, wiser, and more determined. And the quiet human engineer of the outpost, who had never wanted more than to fix broken machines, would be at the center of it all. Daniel turned to Kayla, his voice quiet, but steady. "We've done it today, but what happens next?" Kayla's eyes glimmered. "Next, we prepare. We teach humanity to see its own strength. The galaxy underestimates humans. That is a mistake it will never make again." Daniel nodded, feeling both fear and determination. For the first time in his life, he realized he was no longer just a lonely engineer. He was part of something larger, something bigger than himself, and beside him, Kayla, alien, mysterious, and brave, stood as proof that humans could adapt, survive, and even thrive against impossible odds. The stars outside stretched endlessly. The human spirit, quiet but unyielding, had begun to shine across the void of space. The stars outside the outpost shimmered like distant fires, but inside, tension hung thick as smoke. Daniel's hands hovered over the control panel, his mind racing through every calculation, every contingency. The fleet had retreated, but their withdrawal was temporary. Kayla's scanners detected new signals approaching, larger this time, moving faster and more cautiously. "They learned from our trap," Kayla said, her voice calm but serious. "They will not make the same mistake twice." Daniel swallowed. He felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. "Then we adapt again," he said, echoing her words from earlier. "We use what we have." Kayla nodded, her eyes glimmering with respect. "That is why I chose to trust you. You see possibilities where others see limits." They worked side by side, modifying the outpost's defenses. Daniel rerouted power through the old energy emitters, creating temporary shields and diversion pulses. Kayla integrated her ship's advanced systems with his rudimentary setup, synchronizing the energy flows in a way that no human engineer could have imagined on his own. Hours passed like minutes. The hum of machinery, the occasional beep of a scanner, and the distant rumble of approaching ships created a rhythm of urgency. They spoke little, but every glance, every gesture communicated understanding. Daniel realized he and Kayla were thinking in perfect sync, two minds focused on survival and strategy. Then the enemy appeared again. This time their formation was tighter, their weapons charged and ready. Daniel felt a shiver of fear, but Kayla's steady presence gave him strength. "They are testing our limits," she said. "They want to see how far humans will push." Daniel glanced at her. "How far do we have to push?" Kayla's eyes softened. "Farther than you think." The stars outside the outpost had never felt so silent and threatening at the same time. Daniel sat in the control room, hands gripping the console, sweat running down his temples. The enemy fleet had returned, larger and more organized than before. This time, they were not testing humans. They were coming to destroy. Kayla floated beside him, her armor reflecting the dim lights of the control room. "They have learned," she said quietly. "They know we can adapt. They will not make mistakes like last time." Daniel swallowed hard. "Then we'll have to be faster, smarter, stronger." Kayla's eyes met his, and for a moment the chaos outside seemed distant. "That is why I came to you. Humans are unpredictable. That is your greatest weapon. Trust yourself, Daniel. Trust humanity." Daniel took a deep breath. He had no choice. He was no soldier, yet today he would fight. Not with brute force, but with the ingenuity and courage that made humans different from every other species the galaxy had ever met. The enemy ships approached in tight formation, their weapons glowing and ready. Daniel had prepared the outpost with every possible trick. Satellite arrays reflected energy pulses, drones hovered like sentries, and the old maintenance bots were rigged as decoys. Kayla's ship floated at the edge, cloaked, ready to strike. At the perfect moment. "They are almost within range," Daniel said, his fingers moving over the controls. "Hold on." Kayla's voice was steady. "Focus. Human unpredictability will be the key. Let them overreach and we will strike." The fleet fired their first salvo. Energy beams streaked toward the outpost, hitting its outer defenses with precision. Sparks flew from the walls and alarm screamed. Daniel's heart raced, but he did not panic. He activated the energy emitters, creating false reflections that redirected the beams harmlessly into space. "They are confused," Kayla said. "Good. Keep it up." Daniel's mind raced. He had spent years repairing systems, but now he was improvising in real time. He rerouted power from life support to the emitters, increasing their intensity. He coordinated with Kayla, syncing her ship's cloaking pulses with the outpost's sensors. Every move created hesitation among the enemy ships. "They are not just underestimating us," Kayla said. "They are making mistakes. That is human advantage." Daniel grinned, despite the tension. "Then we give them more mistakes." He activated the maintenance bots. They floated into the open, their lights flashing and spinning in patterns that mimicked large war machines. The enemy ships adjusted their course, thinking they were surrounded by reinforcements. Kayla darted through the shadows of the moon, firing short pulses that disabled targeting systems. The enemy faltered. One of their lead ships collided with another while trying to avoid the decoys. Daniel's pulse raced. He could see the opportunity. "Now!" Kayla shouted. She uncloaked for a brief moment, her ship glowing as it fired a concentrated energy wave. Daniel synchronized the outpost's emitters with her attack. The combined pulse hit the enemy formation, disabling multiple ships in a single strike. Sparks and smoke filled the sensors. The fleet wavered. Daniel could hardly believe it. The impossible was happening. A human engineer and an alien scout had created chaos among a fleet far more advanced than anything they should have survived. But there was no time to celebrate. The remaining ships regrouped and fired again, targeting both the outpost and Kayla's vessel. Daniel's hands moved faster than ever, rerouting energy, stabilizing shields, and improvising new traps on the fly. "They won't give up," Kayla said. Her voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. "Then neither will we." Daniel nodded. He understood now what Kayla had meant. Humans were not strongest in numbers or technology alone. They were strongest when they refused to be cornered, when they used every resource, every idea, and every ounce of courage to survive. Twice. Battle raged, but Daniel's confidence grew. He adjusted the pulses to create a wall of energy that split the enemy formation. Some ships were trapped in narrow channels between asteroid fragments, where Kayla's ship struck them precisely. The rest faltered, unsure of the outpost's true strength. "Excellent," Kayla said. "They are faltering. Push harder." Daniel activated one final trick. Using the outpost's satellite array, he created a massive illusion. A fully armed fleet, dozens of ships larger and more powerful than any human craft. The enemy scanned the signals and hesitated, thinking reinforcements had arrived. "They believe we are stronger than we are," Kayla said. "That is your ingenuity, Daniel. That is human unpredictability." The fleet tried to retreat, but Kayla intercepted their path. Using her ship's mobility and precise energy pulses, she disabled their engines one by one. Daniel's traps funneled the remaining ships into predictable positions where they became easy targets. Finally, the last enemy vessel drifted, powerless, its crew forced to surrender. Daniel slumped into his chair, exhausted, but his heart raced with exhilaration. Humans had survived. Humans had won. Kayla's hand rested on his shoulder. "You see now," she said softly, "humanity's strength is not what others think it is. It is courage, creativity, and the will to survive. That is why the galaxy will fear you." Daniel felt a mix of awe and pride. "We did it. But this is just one fight, isn't it?" Kayla nodded. "Yes, But today, humanity proved it cannot be ignored. Today, humans showed that even one engineer, one station, and one alien ally can change the course of a battle. That is a lesson the galaxy will remember. Daniel looked at the stars outside the viewport. For centuries, humans had been underestimated, ignored, and dismissed. But here at the edge of space, they had shown what they could do. Kayla floated beside him, her armor gleaming softly. The galaxy may not yet know it, she said, but humans are a force that cannot be controlled. And with allies like you, the future is limitless. Daniel took a deep breath, feeling both relief and determination. The battle had ended. But the war for recognition, survival, and humanity's place in the galaxy had only just begun. And beside him, Kayla remained. A reminder that courage, ingenuity, and trust between unlikely allies could turn the tide, even against the most powerful enemies. For the first time, Daniel understood the truth of her arrival. She had come too close, too fast, and he could not move away. And perhaps that was exactly what had saved them both. The battle had ended, but the silence that followed felt heavier than any combat roar. Daniel stood at the viewport, staring at the stars that stretched endlessly before him. The enemy fleet had retreated, leaving behind drifting wrecks, glowing like faint reminders of the struggle they had survived. He could hardly believe it. One outpost, one human engineer, and an alien ally had faced an entire fleet and survived. Kayla floated beside him, her eyes reflecting the distant wreckage. She was calm, but Daniel could sense the tension still, lingering beneath her composure. "They will remember this," she said softly. "Your actions today have sent a message across the sector. Humanity cannot be underestimated." Daniel shook his head, still processing everything. I was just doing what needed to be done. I'm no soldier. I'm just an engineer." Kayla's gaze softened, and for a moment she reached out, placing her hand lightly on his shoulder. "That is exactly why you are dangerous. You think in ways they do not expect. You adapt. You survive. That is the human way. Today, you proved it." Daniel felt a strange mix of pride and humility. For years he had worked in silence, fixing machines, surviving alone. And now the galaxy was beginning to see the potential of humanity, not through fleets, not through empires, but through courage, creativity, and determination. The outpost was quiet again, but repairs were already underway. Daniel moved through the corridors, inspecting systems damaged during the battle. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits, and the air shimmered faintly with residual energy from the emitters. Kayla followed silently, watching him work. "Your people have potential," she said, her voice calm. "But they are scattered, unprepared for what lies ahead. That is why I came to you, to show that even in small numbers humans can be formidable." Daniel paused, wiping sweat from his brow. "And now? What happens next? They'll be back, won't they?" Kayla nodded. "Yes. Stronger, wiser, more determined. But humans have a gift they do not understand yet. They adapt. They survive. And with the right guidance, they can shape their own future." The words settled in Daniel's chest. He realized that the galaxy had underestimated humanity for far too long. And now, he was part of the beginning of a new chapter, one where humans would no longer be ignored. He walked toward the docking bay, checking the status of Kayla's ship. Its systems had sustained minor damage, but with the repairs they had made together, it was ready for the journey ahead. Kayla's eyes followed him, filled with quiet appreciation. "You did more than survive today," she said. "You demonstrated what humans are capable of. That is worth more than any fleet." Daniel looked at her, a faint smile forming despite exhaustion. "I couldn't have done it without you." Kayla shook her head gently. "You could. You just needed someone to remind you, and perhaps someone to trust. That is why I came too close, too fast. I could not move away, and neither could you." The words lingered between them, a quiet acknowledgement of the bond that had formed in the heat of battle. Daniel felt something he had never felt before. Connection, understanding, and a sense of purpose that went beyond survival. Outside, the stars continued to stretch endlessly, indifferent yet bearing.